tell us about your experience at ETH Denver. Is this your first time here? Have you been here before?
It's my first time at ETH Denver. I was meant to come 2 years ago, but I got COVID, which was a shame. So it's amazing to experience it. It's sort of unlike any of the other Ethereum events I've been to. I've been to ETHCC and those kind of things, but this is bigger and a hell of a lot of energy.
What was the motivating factor that brought you here?
We came to ETH Denver because we're sort of relatively new on the block, trying to get the message out. We're a Solidity-based layer one, and we're building essentially a layer one for data. And this, Ethereum, the Ethereum ecosystem, the people that know how to use Solidity are ultimately the people that will end up using Flare.
Brilliant, perfect. You're doing it, bang on. You mentioned some other conferences. Can you key in, share some observations about the differences, what you find unique and special about ETH Denver, at least for your experience so far, relative to other conferences you've attended?
Sure. So all conferences, have a very different flavor. You've got things like Token 2049, which we'll be at in Dubai, and that's sort of much more about investment and investors and VCs and that kind of the sort of the infrastructure of investment around that around the ecosystem. ETH Denver is much more, or it appears to be much more focused on builders and people actually building, the actual core protocols and dapps and things like that. So that's why we wanted to be here. We're very sort of builder focused, much less investment focused. Things like, ETHCC is a very good proxy for ETH Denver in Europe, but I think again has a very different flavor.
Great. So yeah, what from your perspective would be the top three crypto narratives that are emerging as key themes in 2024, the big drivers of this kind of bull run?
The top three narratives are very simple, really. It's definitely ZK, it's definitely restaking, and I would argue the third one that is sort of relatively new but probably going to be absolutely massive is AI.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about how Flare is playing in one or more or all of those narratives?
So, Flare's, I suppose, integrated into, I think, where the narrative is going. We're building blockchain for data. As use cases get more demanding and require more data and more secure data, especially as regulators start looking at the industry and they start saying, well, is this data source, is it valid? Is this a good way to deliver it and all that kind of stuff? We think that we fit very well into sort of where the industry is going. We're also sort of within Flare, we have an extremely strong AI team. And we have an entire AI protocol that we released a paper on 2 days ago.
Can you talk a little bit about the AI team and the AI protocol?
Absolutely. So the origin of Flare was, myself and two co-founders. We actually met studying machine learning at UCL, and our chief scientist, Dr. Nairi Usha, was a quantum physicist. So working on quantum computing and working on quantum AI algorithms. So we've been working together, principally Dr. Nairi and some of our researchers, to work on what we think is the most logical intersection between blockchain and AI. And I must admit, we're kind of excited by it because I think it does one thing that really interests us, which is blockchain specifically can make AI better. And you can't necessarily say that about every use case in blockchain.
Yeah, so I'd like to hear how does tell us how that
so
happens.
What you're looking for is why does blockchain make AI better? It's because, well, at least the model we're going for, it can make AI more accurate. Less requirement for trust. We've all seen in the last couple of weeks that there's been some models that have spat out results which are very strange. They clearly have a lot of bias in them. The model has bias, so it's spitting out very odd results. And essentially what you can do is not only do you get a more accurate answer, but you can reduce bias by essentially, instead of having one entity that is, or you can reduce the need for trust really, because when you're using an AI model, you are trusting someone else. You can reduce that need for trust by essentially spreading the production of AI models out across many participants.
Okay. So, yeah, I want to draw a few of these things. So you've got integrated, the data layer. So you've got the data, the blockchain, the AI models, more accurate, less bias. What is the data part? Can you talk a little bit more about how you as an organization is using data and the blockchain?
Absolutely. So our data and AI things are slightly different, although they are related. The data aspect is essentially we're a blockchain that gives you three types of data. Time series data, like price data. Web 2 proofs, so proofs of something that happened from a non-blockchain API, and proofs of something that happened on a blockchain. So this then allows you to build really quite an extensive list of things. For instance, we're building 2 bridges with that. We're also building a relay of our data, and the relay, in fact, is part of the data protocol. So we can prove data onto Flare, and then we're going to relay it to other chains, so to act as an oracle, but a highly decentralized oracle. The decentralization of it is important because if you're relying on something that is less decentralized, you're taking a huge amount of risk, essentially, with not, if you're an ecosystem group that is part of a blockchain, and you take on a centralized oracle, you're taking a lot of risk of development of your project. The same if you're an application founder, and the same if you're a user, and you're putting money into those protocols. So we think that by making oracles or data substantially more decentralized, having stake behind them, so that there's serious losses if there's maliciousness or just bad data. This makes people take it a lot more seriously. This is not necessarily true of earlier oracles.
And how are the incentives? How are you tying the incentives to ensuring the decentralization and therefore accuracy?
Absolutely. So our validators on the chain are also the data providers. So they stake and they get the sort of inflationary rewards that are standard of any proof of stake based network. But then there can also be payments for the data. So for particular data series, or if you want the data at a very low latency, you can pay up to get lower latency. So it's naturally at 90-second updates, but you can get a 1 block update, and a 1 block is around 2 seconds. We're also going to relay it to other chains, and those other chains, on those chains, there'll be a low payment for data. We're not looking to price gouge like many in the industry, but we're looking to essentially provide high quality data at an affordable price.
Is that on that? But can you talk a little bit about how you differentiated from other oracles that may be less decentralized?
Absolutely. So traditionally, oracles basically they're off-chain things. There are a bunch of nodes, and they're not doing anything on-chain until they publish the price. Right, so they get price submissions off chain, they aggregate them, they take a median, and then that median is published onto the chain. That obviously, if you had 1 million nodes, you still wouldn't know if those 1 million nodes were the same person, or you basically have no protection against Sybil attacks really. And so essentially it has ended up being, and it may not have been intended to be, quite centralized. There's not a vast amount of data providers. So conversely, we thought, okay, how do we make data better? Well, let's use the structure that we have found as an industry to do things that distribute trust and safety across a network. So we thought, why not build a blockchain that is actually acting as the oracle rather than a bunch of off-chain nodes? And so that's sort of the premise behind Flare.
Got it. That was an aha moment for me. Thank you. Okay, great. Kind of back to the themes, growth and innovation, and obviously within our industry, making things better. Sounds like you're well on track there. Can you talk a little bit about your view of overall adoption of cryptos? We say the next billion users, new entrants into the space. How do you see that evolving from your perspective as an industry as a whole?
So, the sort of adoption and mass adoption of crypto, I think I've seen, I don't know about you, but I've been on Twitter for the last couple of days and everyone's talking about the price. But everyone's also saying that none of their normie friends are calling them and talking about the price, which is interesting, which means that I think an awful lot of people have an expectation that the price is going to go a lot further. I don't think that price is the only thing that leads. I think there's a mischaracterization in our industry that if we just get really, really, pumpy, that people will jump in. I don't think that's necessarily the desirable way to do it, because it's every time we've done that, it's ended in a crash. So I think, efforts like the Ethereum scaling, that should lead to mass adoption because it can bring the price of doing things down. And then it also makes it substantially faster, so that the faster something is, the more valuable a use case built on it can be. Because really what we're comparing our blockchains to is our applications on phones, right? That's basically everyone's experience of interacting with the internet. So it's got to be able to be as scalable or coming as close as possible to using an ordinary application. And then of course you have to have the front ends that make it substantially easier to use, because even I did some staking on our network the other day, and we've put a lot of effort into trying to make it as easy as possible. I still know that my mum could absolutely have no idea what she's looking at. So, I think account abstraction is probably the most interesting thing. For us with AI, we think, that can potentially lead to mass adoption by people using AI without necessarily having to know that they're using a blockchain. And that there are, viable ways to do that, because essentially the AI is delivering you an answer, and the blockchain aspect can potentially be abstracted away. But even that use case is going to require intense scaling in order to make it feasible, a product that could be mass adopted.
Do you think new entrants, the masses adopting, will appreciate the message of decentralization, particularly in the case that you're talking about, which is making AI trusted? Like, we obviously have to educate them first to understand the value that...
Well, see, that's an interesting thing. I think we win when we have products that have an inherent value without having to explain decentralization. I think having to rely on the ideas of decentralization to make the product good, as opposed to have a good product because of decentralization, I think we often have it the wrong way around. And I think what excites me most about artificial intelligence and blockchain is that if implemented well, blockchain can make superior artificial intelligence. And so that has the lead for the product the right way around.
That's good. That's a closer, man. But I do want to tackle, because you probably have some good thoughts and ideas around regulatory developments and challenges. What do you see as the key challenges we face, and what solutions might you have in mind or be implementing as part of what Flare is offering to the market?
So in the regulatory space, we have, I guess, a lot of challenges. We appear to have, well, where I live, we have an incredibly, intelligent government in Dubai and the UAE, who have actively tried to figure out, how do we do this? How do we make it possible for people to build a new technology? In Europe as well, they appear to be fairly amenable to making it an easier place to work. In the US, of course, the regulatory challenges are quite high. I think there's fairly obvious reasons behind that. And there's very obvious reasons why other jurisdictions are quite happy to embrace it. I mean, it sort of goes without saying. I think what is really important, and we can't deny it, is that absolutely KYC and AML, in a decentralized way, so that we don't really want censorship, right? The whole industry is about trying to avoid censorship. But if you can do KYC and AML, and sure, at the application level, it's absolutely possible that people may build an application that says, if you're on the OFAC list, you cannot use this application. Other people are free to build applications that do, and that application may or may not be successful. But where feasible, where sensible, KYC and AML is incredibly important. We've been thinking a lot about how we integrate it into the things we do. Part of the reason for building a blockchain for data is to be able to do decentralized identity and things like KYC and AML, sort of within the blockchain itself. So, I suppose that's the limit of my thoughts on regulation.
Yeah, that's great. One of the areas that's been coming up is the transparency that the blockchain can deliver in a decentralized fashion and public and all these good things is possibly a solution, right? That the nature of our industry and our technology can be a solution to the very same challenges that regulators are kind of scratching their head about with our industry.
Absolutely. Again, in the regulatory space, a lot of the accusations leveled at us are things like money laundering, right? But, HSBC, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, world's biggest money launderers, all the proofs, all the sort of studies from things like Chainalysis and all that kind of stuff showed that really people don't use crypto for money laundering substantially because it's incredibly transparent. You can track every transaction from, the day dot. That is much harder to do within a closed banking system.
Thank you. That's it for the questions we have. Just want to end off, fun stuff. You getting together with the team, seeing colleagues. Talk a little bit about the more experiential side of your trip to Denver.
Well, Denver's fun because it's like a brewery city. And we had a big party. Well, not a party. It was actually a fireside, but it ended up being a party with Google Cloud and Anchor yesterday. And we had an awful lot of people turn up, and a lot of our team there. So I think 6 people from our team, and very few of our team are based in the US. So it's great fun, and the energy is really fantastic. People are very excited. I think obviously what looks like the beginnings of a bull market is helps, but generally it's pretty optimistic regardless.
Yeah, great, thank you. That's it for us, but we got a couple minutes if you want to drop another soundbite or anything that we can see if we can work it in.
I suppose, look, the only major theme of what we're doing at Flare is, we've defined all these protocols. We've shipped one of the major protocols called the Flare Time Series Oracle, which is for price data, time series data, and we're just about to upgrade that so that it moves from 15 price pairs to 1,000, so that it moves from a 3-minute update to a 90-second update, and so that it has an additional protocol which you can pay for, as in you can use incentives to update it every single block, which is 2 seconds. So purely decentralized Oracle, updated on-chain every block. And then our motto for this year is ship everything. So shipping all of the rest of our protocols, that is the Web 2 proofs, the Web 3 proofs, and the bridges.
You guys will be busy.
Yep.
Is anyone else in the space doing this, or?
So I'm not.
Decentralized Oracle?
I think we're fairly alone in decentralized oracles. I've seen a few other projects that kind of are doing bits of what we're doing, but I don't think anyone's doing it quite as comprehensively. And I guess whilst we term ourselves the blockchain for data, really what we are is data plus bridging plus compute, right? So like, if you think of it a bit like, Axelar, but with prices and with compute in the middle, EVM smart contracts. So not only do you have data and a lot of bridging and general message parsing, but you've also got smart contracts that can sit in the middle of it. And that gives you an awful lot of flexibility in what you want to build.